Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Dear Masuma, the show that seeks to answer your deepest queries and concerns. My name is Sana Araji and I'm here with Masuma Jaffar. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How are you today?
Alhamdulillah. How about yourself?
Alhamdulillah. Are you ready for another question from our dear viewers, inshallah? So I'm just going to go straight to the question. Dear Masuma, I have an eating disorder. I struggle with eating. I have very bad habits that would be deemed unacceptable in the Islamic sense. I have always struggled with my weight and I have always had to battle my mental demons to stop myself from doing things that are bad for my body, such as starving myself amongst other things. I am currently working on this and I'm slowly improving. However, I do have many bad days. Will I be punished for this? I almost feel as though this is something I struggle with, as it's always been there and I struggle to control it. I do ask for forgiveness, but it does not feel right, as I always end up repeating my mistakes. What would you suggest for someone in my predicament?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First and foremost, recognize that an eating disorder is a mental illness. Just like a physical illness, it's not something that you will be held liable for because you're not doing it out of arrogance or pride or because you don't care. It's something that's an illness within yourself, so you need help. And just like a physical illness, there's a range. So dependent on where you are on that spectrum will depend on how much help you need. There is no shame in it, and it's about getting the help that's required professionally.
Okay.
So that's important first and foremost. They actually say that they're currently working on this, and I think that's beautiful. I'd ask them how they're working on it. Are they doing the same thing again and again and again? Because a lot of the times what we tend to do is we do something, it doesn't work, and then we do the same thing again and the same thing again, and then we wonder why we keep failing. So it's recognizing, okay, you're currently working on it, but what are you actually doing?
Okay.
A lot of the times, it's recognizing that Allah doesn't abandon us. So He gives us tools to be able to handle this. And these tools are internally within myself. So the strength that He gives me, the patience He gives me to be able to handle whatever the life situation I find myself in. But He also gives me tools externally. And those may be people in my life, professionals that I can turn to, my friend circle, my family, whoever it is. And it's again recognizing that these are sent by Allah, and by me not using these tools, I'm actually then doing a disservice to myself.
Okay.
So one is to recognize that I have the strength from within myself, and the second is to recognize the strength that I have from externally, from the people around me, and the professionals that I may need to turn to and talk to as well. It is not a sin if it is an illness, but I may be held accountable if I'm not doing anything about the illness.
Okay, right.
So, for example, if, God forbid, I have cancer and I say I'm not going to take any treatment, that would be considered a sin because I'm supposed to do everything I can to prolong my life.
Right.
So if I choose not to take treatment because I don't want to, then I will be held, that would be considered as a sin because there was treatment there and I chose not to take it. In the same way with mental illness, if I choose not to take the treatment when there is treatment there, then it will be considered as a sin.
Okay.
Okay, but to actually have an illness is not a sin. It's what I do with it that may then lead to a sin, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Also, when I'm currently working on it, it's important to recognize that God judges us on our intention and how much effort we're putting into it, not on the results. So yes, you may fail, and yes, you may do it again, but that's not what God's judging you on. He's looking at first your intention. At that moment, what was your intention? Was it to get better because that's what Allah would want? Did you use whatever Allah sent your way in order to do it? How much effort did you put into it? And then even if you fail at the end of it, that's not on you. The results are on Allah. Right. So that's important to recognize. And they talk about the fact that they ask for forgiveness, but they don't feel it's right because they end up repeating the mistake. When you're asking for forgiveness, as long as you're sincere at that moment that you're asking for forgiveness, then God will forgive. The sincerity has to be there. Now, it's not just about asking for forgiveness, but it's actually righting the wrong and putting stuff in action into place, which will stop you from doing it again. So I always talk about it as the 3 R's. Remorse for what you're doing.
Okay.
So you actually then ask for forgiveness. Rectify, where you actually right the wrong that you've done. And then resolve never to do it again. So remorse, rectify, and resolve. Okay. So if I'm asking for forgiveness, I need to feel that remorse and sincerely ask for forgiveness. I need to right the wrong, and this may be by ensuring that, you know, if I've hurt anyone or if I've done anything wrong, if I've not, you know, done my wajibat or something, I rectify it. And then actually resolving never to do it again by putting some sort of action into plan, you know, some sort of action there which will stop me from doing that again. So in this person's case, it may be, you know what, I feel bad that I've treated my body the way I have, and I can ask for forgiveness for that. Although it is a mental illness, I can still ask for forgiveness for it. I can rectify the wrong by actually sort of saying, okay, from now on I'm not going to do this, I'm going to try to eat better, I'm going to try, and then actually putting in place an action plan. So asking people for help, going to professionals. It's important that they actually have a support system. So a lot of the times, because mental illness is looked down upon, people hide it. And it's very difficult to manage it on your own. So it's important that you tell family and close friends, because then they can support you. You know, if her family and her close friends know that she has this illness, then they will push her to eat sensibly when she's not feeling like it. They will make sure that she doesn't go into the bathroom to make herself sick, and things like that. But they can't do that if they don't know.
I was going to say that probably the family don't know. Not in this situation, in many cases, especially within, like you were saying, mental health issues are looked down upon.
Yeah. So
a lot of times she might think that if I tell my family, they're just going to think I'm silly, or I'm just seeking attention, or, you know, I'm not, there's nothing wrong with me, but I'm just doing it because, you know, maybe other people are doing it and I want to get slim. So there might not be understanding families.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it would help some people deal with their issues when their families are maybe a bit narrow-minded.
So I think, alhamdulillah, we're moving towards a situation where these things are talked about much more openly. And I think what I would advise this person to do is actually maybe take your family with you to one of your appointments, so that the professional can actually talk to them. Because a lot of the times when you hear it from a professional, you'll sort of take it on board more than if you hear it from, you know, your child. And actually, when you're telling your family, it's the way you tell them as well, and you know, tell them that, you know, you how long you've been battling against it, what is it that you exactly do, how you feel, how bad you feel about it. You know, all of these things, the things are to make them try to understand, because obviously they've not been there, they've not experienced it, so they don't understand it. So it's actually making them realize that, you know, you feel so bad about it that it's not something that you're doing, you know, you wish you didn't have to do it. So you're not doing it to get attention because you wish you weren't that person. So, but you don't have control, and that's why you can't do it. You know, you need help with that control thing. So it's important to recognize that. And also, I think the family needs support as well. A lot of the times we focus on the person who is ill, whether it's mentally or physically, but we don't, you know, we forget that the family is going through trauma as well. So as a community, we need to be there for not only the person, but the family as well. And again, you know, that whole concept of not judging others, it comes into it. I think, you know, a lot of the times the families will hide it because, oh, if it gets out, then she'll never get married. Or, you know, people will judge them and then never sort of, you know, they'll never get a job, or they'll never be taken seriously, or whatever the reason. And I think that's really sad, because, you know, if someone was to break their leg, you wouldn't hold that against them for the rest of their life. In the same way, if they have a mental illness, you can't hold it against them for the rest of their life. It's you know, it's something that happened, and as long as they've sought help for it and they're managing it, then There's nothing different about them as compared to anyone who's not got that illness. So it's recognizing that, not judging them, actually thinking about how you can help.
Okay.
Even if it's just through du'as. I think a lot of the times it's like, we don't understand the power of du'a. And I think if the community know and they're not judging and they're praying, then there's more likelihood for that person to get better quicker because of the du'as of others. So I think we miss out on that because we're so scared of what other people will think, so we don't tell others, and therefore we miss out on the du'as.
Yeah,
and I think if each one of us realizes that that could be me or that could be my child, then maybe it would stop us from judging others, and recognize that it could be,
could happen to any of us. Yeah,
exactly. You can't control things like that. So I think it's a very difficult situation to be in.
It is, yeah.
Especially because I feel like mental illness is not understood so well. And this person feels, it's so sad that, they're actually not only battling with the eating disorder, but that sort of guilt of doing something that they, that they know is wrong. And it's like she's asking, will I be punished for this? And that's really sad because you're putting that whole burden on top of the eating disorder of this whole, concept of being punished as well.
Yeah.
And again, Allah is merciful, He is loving. I think how we look at punishment is so wrong, in like we look at it from a perspective of we do something wrong and God is waiting there like an evil master to sort of whip us with a cane, to put us into the fire of hell, It's not like that. It's literally whatever we do, we're actually building our own heaven or hell. Our actions take a sort of physical embodiment, and that's what affects us.
Yeah.
So if I'm not doing this out of arrogance, and I'm not doing it out of pride, and I'm not doing it out of disobedience to Allah, but I'm doing it because I'm weak, or because I have a mental disorder, or because I'm trying but I'm still messing up. What would your mother do?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah? And she wouldn't just throw you and punish you.
Of course, yeah.
She'd embrace you, and she'd tell you not to worry, and she'd tell you, look, I'm here, I'm going to help you. And if this person can realize that God loves them more than their mothers, 70 times more than their mothers, and God is embracing this person, and He wants to help her or him, but they have to be open towards that help. They have to feel that love, they have to feel that connection. Then that will give them the strength to be able to then fight this illness to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So it's recognizing that God hasn't abandoned you. God is not waiting to punish you. God is waiting to guide you. God is waiting to help you. God is sort of wanting to lead you towards paradise, not towards hell.
Yeah, no, inshallah. And what do you think could be the the cause for why someone would go and become having an eating disorder? Like, what type of issues? Could it be social media? I mean, what?
There are so many different things that could come into this. I mean, it could be something that happened in their childhood.
Right.
Maybe someone said something.
Okay. Maybe
they were told that they were fat. Maybe it's something that happened. With I don't know, one of their friends, that they saw something happen. It could be social media, where you have this idea of what is the norm, which really isn't the norm.
Okay.
And again, it may just be this person the eating disorder is not really about the eating, but it's about trying to take control.
Right. Okay.
So a lot of the times because you're losing control in everything else in your life, you feel like you need to take control in something, and eating is something that you can, you sort of can control. So it may not actually be the concept of you being fat or thin or anything like that. It's just wanting to take control.
Okay.
It's like, people who self-harm. It's it may be due to just being in control. There are other reasons. It may be, you want to sort of focus on that physical pain so you don't, feel the emotional pain. There's so many different things, and that's why you need to go for professional help. And again, recognizing that, Allah sends people in your lives to help you. Sometimes, we feel like we don't want to go to an outsider because they won't understand what it's like to go through this being a Muslim. And Allah will send, you know, a Muslim to you. But again, then you'll say, oh, I don't want to go to this because then the community will know what I'm going through. You know, or sometimes, you know, you'll go for counselling and because you don't like what the counsellor is saying, or because it doesn't sit well with you, or because it's difficult, because again, it's about a journey, right? And it's difficult, the journey is difficult. You use an excuse, so you'll pick a fault in the counsellor, or you'll say that, you know, they did this or they did that, or it doesn't work with your timings, or, you know, you can see that there are excuses brought about. Because you're looking for an excuse not to go on this difficult journey.
Right. Okay.
And that's what you'll be held liable for. And that's where you're doing a disservice to yourself and you're stopping yourself from growing and sort of using what Allah has sent to you. I think that's important to recognise.
Okay. And on for a parent, what are, so if they don't know that their child has this an eating disorder or any sort of mental health issue, what are the signs that they can look for to recognise that there's something wrong with their child?
So I think if, you know, especially when it comes to eating disorders, when you're eating together is important. Sort of, you know, if they're refusing to eat together, they go into their rooms to eat. If they go to the bathroom straight after having eaten, if they're losing weight quite a lot, if they're maybe constantly talking about how they don't like the way they look, you know, that lack of confidence and self-esteem within themselves. All of these things are things that we can pick up on, and it's not just with eating disorders. It's again, if I'm having conversations with my child, then I can pick up on other things that may be going on in their lives. So by what they're saying, by, you know, if something changes drastically in their behavior, instead of putting it down to, oh, it must be hormones, or it's just, you know, something that they're going through, actually sort of, you know, this should, you know, make me think why. And actually having that conversation with my child and sort of saying, you know, is there something you'd like to talk about? Is there something that's upsetting you? You know, when my child tells me that they're ugly, or, you know, no one thinks, you know, or they don't think much of themselves, you know, it's actually bringing God back into that conversation, sort of saying, but the creator of the universe created you. Why would he create something ugly? You know, the fact that he chose to create you shows you're amazing, shows that you have the potential to be something wonderful. You know, and actually then sort of when you pick up on something, rather than sort of accusing that person, accusing the child, actually have a conversation with the child and say, look, I've noticed this, and see what they say about that. And actually sort of saying, look, you know what, I'm here. I won't ever stop loving you. I'm here to help you. Tell me what I can do. So again, not judging them, not telling them, you know, that they're a waste of space, or how could they do this, or how silly it is. It's like, you know, actually sort of realizing that it's a difficult thing that they're going through. And even if it's not a mental illness, it's just something that they're finding difficult to handle. As a parent, we need to be able to support our children through that difficult time. I think a lot of the times as parents, we forget what it was like to be children. We forget how important it was when my friend wasn't my friend anymore, or when I had an argument, or, you know, when someone told me that I didn't, you know, I looked ugly, or someone told me I wasn't clever, or someone, you know, those things really have a huge effect on the child. And as adults, okay, they don't have a huge effect on most adults. And, you know, and we think, oh, that's so silly. It's like, wait till you grow up and you realise what problems really are. But at that moment, it's a problem for that child. And instead of sort of just brushing it off as if it's nothing, actually give them that time and you know, actually realise, realise that it's important to them.
And once you, like, for example, if you do speak to your child and then they do have a discussion with you about issues that they may have, do you take it as a parent to go and see a specialist, or do you try and sort it within your home? Like, what would be recommended?
It depends on how severe the disorder is. I think that's important, how long it's been going on for, what the reasons behind it is. I would recommend actually seeing a professional. But again, I wouldn't push that as a parent, I would actually talk to my child and get them to come up with the solutions and what they think will help and how you can help them, rather than pushing my idea of what would help.
Okay.
But if they're not doing anything, then I may have to be a little bit more pushy. But it's
Okay.
actually about sort of letting them take ownership, because when they take ownership, then they'll actually take on board the solution, because they've taken ownership with it. Whereas if you shove the solution down their throat, they won't want it.
Right, okay.
And again, you're taking control away from them once more.
Yeah.
Which is a dangerous thing to do.
So it's quite tricky, isn't it? You have to kind of walk on eggshells around this in a bit. And try
I think
to...
it's actually just recognizing that this person is an adult.
Okay.
And sort of, although they're my child, they're still an adult. And they need to let me know what works for them, because again, they're another human being. They're not me. Yes, I've brought them up and they've come from me, but they're not me. So recognizing that they think differently, that they have a different life experience to me, and sort of letting them tell me what works for them.
Okay.
I can make suggestions, but you know, it will be, I will constantly be telling them, okay, how can I help you to get closer to Allah? That's my role as a parent. How can I help you to be comfortable with yourself? How can I help you to be the best version of yourself? How can I help you to reach the potential that God's given you? So constantly bringing it back to God. And as a parent, I want to be there to help you to do this, but you need to tell me how I can help you.
Right, okay.
And when they come up with something, actually sort of talking through the pros and the cons of that. So, okay, you've said this, but what about, you know, have you thought of it this, or have you thought of that? And do you think it'll work here, and do you think it'll work there? And what are the advantages of it? What are the disadvantages of it? Actually getting them to think, you know, talk it through and think it through.
Right, okay. So getting them to kind of proactively come up with the ideas, but you're kind of just there, not edging them, but kind of supporting them to kind of get
and
to their own conclusion at the end of it.
Exactly.
Okay. No, inshallah, hopefully, I mean, it is something that is very, you know, touchy, and you don't really hear much about it in the Muslim communities that much. And I guess it has to be something that needs to be addressed, because it is happening, unfortunately.
No, for sure.
I don't know, maybe in centres they need to discuss it more. I'm not sure what could be done.
I think a lot of centres are actually starting to discuss it, and I
Okay.
think a lot of centres have teams that, you know, they've set up to handle situations like this. And again, I think it helps to go to a Muslim, because they understand where you're coming from a religious perspective, and the religion is such a huge part of who we are that you can't actually separate the two.
Definitely.
So I think it is important, and you know, and again, culture is huge as well.
Sure.
So you know, going to someone who's from the same culture can understand, you know, where you're coming from as well.
Yeah, no, inshallah. No, thank you so much for that, Masuma. And I hope that's helped the viewer who sent this in, and anyone else also who might be struggling with similar, with a similar situation.
Sure.
Inshallah, we'll pray for you and make dua that you come out of this, inshallah. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Dear Masuma. Again, do send us in any queries or concerns. You know, it doesn't matter what they are. They might be specifically to you or just general. Just send them in, and we will put them forward to Sister Masuma for you. Inshallah, it will help and benefit you. And hopefully we'll see you on another episode of Dear Masuma. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.